I'm Tim Willoughby, this is Moraine Lebert. Let's head down to our feature match area. Hello and welcome to this, the final round in the Swiss portion of Grand Prix Madrid. I'm Tim Willoughby here with Moraine Lebert, and I'm going to give you a bit of a breakdown as to what we're watching here. This is Joel Larsen, Elias Watzfeld and Per Nystrom up against Matteo Mori, Fabrizio Campanino and Tommaso Badiali. Now, these two teams, they are currently sat in third and fourth place on tiebreakers. Sorry, third and sixth place on tiebreakers. And we believe that this is a very straightforward win and in matchup that we see here. Joel Larsen, he is on what looks to be a journalist up against Fabrizio Campanino's Tron. And you know what? There are not very many win-and-ins left. We have Michael Bonda and Peterson and Evelson. They are a mortal lock for this final top four. They are playing their matchup against Green, Jones and Eletambi, meaning that even if they lose, they're the number one seed. If they win, then they make it so that Green, Jones, and Eletambi cannot make the top four. The winner of this matchup will be in our top four. And then on table 3, Huschenbeth, Severin, and Grimmer up against Poltz, Vinane, Arnuv. That one we believe also to be a win and in. For anyone else, they've got to kind of hope that the pairing of Green, Jones and Eletambi loses, at which point the door is open to someone else to make it into the top 4. But very, very slim set of teams that can even make it. When you look at the likes of, on 30 points, Engard Larsen, Müller, Blohon against Mengucci, Calcano, Dominguez, they're on 30 points. A win takes them to 33, but their tiebreakers still just not good enough to make it into the elimination stages here at Madrid. Dark Confidant already in play here for Joel Larsen. That means that he's going to have a consistent source of card advantage and some small semblance of reprieve from him, looking on at not a turn 1 Tron piece, turn 2 Tron piece. Yes, there's Urza's Mine already in play, but with just a forest alongside it, Fabrizio Campanino, the earliest that he can get to the full Urzatron will be turn 4 here in Madrid.
Yeah, and Joel Larsen actually taking a look at that chromatic sphere just to make sure that if he destroys it, his opponent won't draw a card, and that is indeed the fact. Fabrizio, maybe a slight mistake by not playing the chromatic star instead of the chromatic sphere. It's the small differences, small misplays that can make a difference.
Yeah, I think the reason that Chromatic Star even exists is Chromatic Sphere is a little bit of a strange one. It has card drawing as part of a mana ability, and that represents some slightly weird things in terms of the rules going forward. So they made Chromatic Star that just makes it a little bit cleaner, that it's just whenever it's put into graveyard from play, for whatever reason, draw a card.
Another land of the Dark Confidant. Joel wouldn't mind drawing some spells with the Dark Confidant. It is safe to go down to like 12 life against a deck like Tron. You don't want too many lands. Although of course he's happy to go up to 4 to be able to play a Bloodbraid Elf.
Bloodbraid Elf, one of the real reasons to play Jund right now, and it does bring along with it a Scavenging Ooze here. That one might potentially be pretty important given there's already a World Breaker in the graveyard for Fabrizio Campanino. At some point there might be a temptation to get that one back. In the meantime though, Joel Larsen perfectly happy to just attack Fabrizio Campanino's life total and drop him to 13 with those swings between Bloodbraid Elf and that Dark Confidant. So this is a big turn here for Fabrizio Campanino. If he's able to assemble the full Tron, he already has a copy of Oblivion Stone in hand and potentially can make some big things happen. If he can't get to that Tron though, well, Joel Larsen can really punish him quite severely here. Plenty of creatures already in play for him.
Funnily enough, on the third table in this matchup, Per Nystrom against Tommaso Badiali. Both of these players are playing Dragon Stompy Monored. Well, what you call it, the 3 drops on turn 1. A deck that has actually surprised me. It's been putting up quite some good performance this weekend.
Yeah, a number of the pro teams have really considered this to be the option of choice for them as Expedition Map comes down for Fabrizio Campanino. So he will be able to find his Tron piece if he so chooses here. Unfortunately, it's going to cost him a little bit of mana to do so, meaning that he's not going to be able to have as explosive a turn 4 as he might otherwise have hoped for.
Luckily, there is still a card like Oblivion Stone, so even if Joel Larsen overloads on permanence, there is still a card like Oblivion Stone to get rid of pretty much everything. Joel has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Remove the World Breakers 8. 8 damage would bring Fabrizio down to 5, and I believe actually Joel has the double lightning bolt in hand, so we might actually see a kill next turn.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Joel Larsson, you have to feel relatively happy that you've not had to face down an early Khan in this first game at least. Lightning Bolt, it's been around since Alpha, and you know what? It's always been one of the premier spells in red for the entirety of the time it's been legal in every format that it's been legal. Of course, available to be played in Modern thanks to the fact that it's been reprinted at various points. Here come the big attacks. Scavenging Ooze does eat that World Breaker, grows to being a 3/3. 8 damage coming through here, and at this point Fabrizio Campanino, he's planning out what his next turn's going to be, he's figuring out what he wants to do, and then he sees 2 copies of Lightning Bolt, and now it's all about figuring out what the next game is going to be for him, because he just has to scoop it up. Joel Larsson winning game 1 in decisive fashion here in Madrid, Spain.
Yeah, he must feel really good, because this is not a good matchup pre-board. Post-board, they will usually bring in a couple of Fulminator Mages. Let's take a look if Joel actually has these. I didn't see.
Looks like he
does.
Yeah,
there we go.
Also has some surgical extractions to work with, so he can do the 1-2 punch of destroy one of your Tron pieces, then remove every single copy of those Tron pieces, building kind of a sowing salt of sorts. But in the meantime, we're going to move across to our standard matchup here, and already we see Elias Watzelt with a reasonably healthy-looking board here. The Scarab God in play, having brought back a Torrential Gearhulk. On the other side of things, it's Pia Nalar with her Toy Thopter there, and Matteo More, yes, he's got a life total lead of 15 to 10, but it's not going to take too many turns for Elias Watzelt to turn that around, given the gigantic beaters that he's got on this battlefield.
Yeah, and I like Elias Wetzfeld build of blue-black control. He's not cutting down on the moment of cravings. 4 moment of cravings, of course, very crucial when facing a deck like mono-red control. Only 2 the Scarab God. So
I'm giving you a nudge here, because even as you're looking at the list, we've seen that Elias Watzfeld has picked up that first game. Somehow or other, we are 7 minutes into this round. There are 3 games already completed. Elias Watzfeld wins his game 1. Joel Larsson wins his game 1. Tommaso Badiali has won his game 1, the one lone victor for the Italian team in this first series of 3 games in this team matchup. Standard, Modern, Legacy, all going on at the same time for these teams. And I think that if we skip around the tables right now, we're just going to see some synchronized shuffling. Lovely synchronized magic from these teams.
Yeah, so now I can finally finish my theory about blue-black control from Elias Watzfeld. I feel like he was the one putting in work for this particular tournament. He also has 2 Golden Demise in the Cyber, something we haven't seen all that much. 2 Metallurgic Summonings, which we've seen in action on camera before, which are very good in the control mirror. And also, what I think is the key for him to winning so many matches is main deck Argos Bloodfast. We have seen how good that card is after Cyborg, but what if you have it in the main deck? That is just as powerful.
Now, just as these players are all going to their various sideboards, we're going to take a look at where the standings sit right now. And I do have access to the full tiebreakers, which are pretty important at this stage of things. Even though when you see Calcano, Dominguez, and Mengucci, Müller, Blowhorn, and Engard Larsen there on 30 points, their tiebreakers, well, compared to the people at the top of the 30 points, are absolute garbage. At 56%, 57% compared to, for the likes of Huschenbeth and Severin Grimmer, 66%. It's just, the difference is so big that it means that the bottom of these top 10 teams really no shot at making at least the elimination stages here, though getting that 33rd point still important potentially in terms of pro points, in terms of prizes, even if they're not able to make the elimination stages. Really, the teams to look out for here, Bonda, Peterson, and Evolson, we will be seeing them in the elimination stages once again. They're at 37 points right now, and regardless of, even if they lose, they will be the #1 seed in our elimination stages. Meanwhile, Elatambi, Jones, and Green, they're playing against Bonda, Peterson, and Evolson right now. That is an elimination match for them, most likely. Their tiebreakers not good enough that I think that they can feel too confident if they do lose against the #1 seed. Then we got this matchup that we got going on here. Watzfeld, Larsen, Nystrom versus More, Campanino, and Badiali. Whoever wins this match will be in our elimination stages, and the loser most likely will not. After that, well, there's only really one matchup that matters too much, that being between Huschenbrecht, Severin and Grimmer, and Polzel, Vigani and Arnev. Believe it or not, who'd have thunk it, we do have that one as our time walk match to show you right after this one completes.
More magic, as if you guys haven't seen enough, we're bringing you more. And after this, finally single elimination.
Yeah, just 2 rounds of single elim, a semi-finals and a finals here in Madrid, Spain. That kind of the way it works in terms of teams, because the matches go a little longer. We have a slightly compacted day. Also, of course, fewer teams here than we might see in terms of, the total number of competitors in the event. Don't necessarily need to have as many rounds to get to our final victor. So Matteo More here, he is the one kicking things off in game 2 against Elias Watzfeld. And with his turn 1, he does play a Bomat Courier, sticks a card under the little mail bug there and gets in for a single point.
Mail bug?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bug that delivers the mail.
Makes sense.
I wouldn't want to make any guesses as to its gender. I'm not sure that's necessarily appropriate, but what it can do is attack and deliver a whole bunch of post.
How about another mail bug and
Fanatical Firebrand. So the Bomat Courier that already had a card exiled does get Fatal pushed. Meanwhile, the other 2 creatures do get stuck in here. All of these 1-drops have haste. And this is the way that Elias Watzfeld takes some early damage here. That damage, we just need to get it all noted on the life totals. A huge amount coming through very, very early doors here. And just a little bit of just being careful to make sure exactly how many cards get exiled. So exactly when was that Fatal Push played? Was it played before the attacks or after the attacks have been declared? Because that won't make an impact as to how many cards have been exiled.
I think the discussion is whether or not Matteo forgot to attack with his fire with his goblin. It was still untapped when the card went underneath the second Bomat Courier. Yeah, and that's what Elias is trying to say. I believe there's a judge as well. The card from Bomat Courier was already underneath it, so the ability had already resolved. This means that the Bomat Courier was already attacking at that point, and at that point the Goblin was still untapped. So in Elias' eyes, it wasn't attacking. And I think he's correct. Technically, he's correct. I believe Matteo, of course, had the intention to attack with both of his creatures, but the way he did it feels like the Goblin was not attacking.
Yeah, it's a little bit fiddly here. We'll wait to see how this one actually plays out. And actually, while these players are just resolving a judge call, rather than watch you wave hands around, we're going to jump across to one of our other tables here, just so we can see a little bit more Magic actually being played. Going to get a chance to see Fabrizio Campanino and Joel Larsen playing a little bit more Magic here. We've already got a Relic of Progenesis in play for Campanino, but once again, we do not see him with the turn 1 Tron piece, turn 2 Tron piece. He's had to take a turn off in order to be able to get a Forest in play, casting an Ancient Stirrings at some point.
Yeah, the way the Tron deck wants to work is it plays a Tron piece turn 1, then with that 1 mana, it wants to play a Chromatic Star or Chromatic Sphere so that it has access to green mana. Despite playing a second Tron on turn 2, it can now sacrifice the Sphere or the Star to play, for example, an Ancient Stirrings or a Sylvan's Crying in order to search up the missing Tron piece. But sometimes you just got to start with a Forest and start with Ancient Stirrings like that. This does delay the Tron deck a full turn, which can be crucial when facing, for example, 4 Fulminating Mages. If you have the 1-2-3 punch, Fulminating Mage is actually too slow. You will already have a Karn in play at that point.
So Tarmogoyf coming down here for Joel Larsen. He will have Fulminator Mage soon enough, but in the meantime, he does have a relatively sizable Tarmogoyf here that can start attacking in.
There is still the Relic of Progenitus, so if Fabrizio wants to, he can completely shrink the Tarmogoyf to a 0-1.
Yeah, Relic of Progenitus, it's one of those cards that there are some matchups where it's devastating, you know, if you're playing against a Dredge deck or so, and it can really make life very, very difficult indeed. Against the likes of the Jund list, it's just frustrating. It does lots of small things well, and one of those small things is making sure that Tarmogoyf is in fact a small thing.
Yep. Kolaghan's Command gets a little bit worse. It still draws a card, as we've seen so many times this weekend. The Tron deck actually gets to the Tron quite easily and then starts cycling through his deck with Chromatic Sphere, Chromatic Star, and adds with Relic of Progenitus just another little artifact that draws him a card.
So Fulminator Mage has an option between a mine and a power plant. Not too much to say between the two. And goes for the tapped land. That does mean that there's, I guess, the potential for Fabrizio Campanino to choose to sacrifice his Relic of Progenitus so he takes no damage from Tarmogoyf. Ultimately, though, he knows that there's going to be plenty of value from keeping it hanging around, at least for now.
Now that John once again has access to Bloodbraid Elf, Fulminator Mage is like the choice of hate against these Tron decks. So no more cards like Crumble to Dust, which are actually more powerful, but they cost 4 mana, so you cannot cascade into them. And that is why people are now playing the full 4 Fulminator Mages.
Now, one of the interesting things, in addition with having that Relic of Progenitus in play, is it means that if there was going to be a surgical extraction from Joel Larsen to try and remove all additional copies of one of these Tron pieces, that would not fare too well, because activation of Relic in response would be enough to stop that spell from resolving due to removing the target.
Very good point. Another Fulminator Mage.
This
is the kind of draw a Jund deck needs, and it might not even be enough. I mean, if there's another Sylvan's Cry, or if the Ancient Stirrings can find another mine, he's not going to. Oh, he's going to do it in the upkeep.
Yeah, he's sticking with taking out power plants. Makes sense to really focus on one Tron land because it makes it all the harder to at least naturally draw into additional copies.
And I think he did it in the upkeep because if he does it at the end of turn, Fabrizio can float 1 mana and then sacrifice the Relic of Progenitus. Small difference, if he would have done it with the untapped mana, then the power plant would have been in the graveyard. Yeah,
so here's an Ancient Stirrings, looking for a colorless card, so that's either going to be an artifact, a land, or maybe something like Ugin the Spirit Dragon.
I think he's just looking for another power plant if he could find that one, but instead it will be a Relic of Progenitus, not the best Ancient Stirrings there is.
And here is Urza's Tower, so again we're 2/3 of the way there to Tron. But right now, just 2 copies of Urza's Power Plant left in the deck for Fabrizio Campanino, so a little bit harder for him to actually dig up that 3rd Tron piece that he's going to need here.
Yeah, 2 Sylvan's Cryings left and 2 Power Plant left, so 4 outs to finding once again the Tron.
And he elects to get rid of both of the power plants in his graveyard here.
I think he's playing really well. He recognizes the danger of surgical extraction, so he gets rid of both of his Urza power plants. I think that's the sign that he's played a lot of Tron, that he's playing a lot of Modern, and he knows what cards Joel Larsen is bringing in.
Keeps 1 mana available so that if there was something like a Kolaghan's Command, which might be able to get back a Fulminator Mage, then he can activate Relic of Progenitus in response. Right now, the Tarmogoyf is being pumped up by land, creature, and sorcery, so it's currently attacking for 3 here. Now, given that there's 2 copies of Relic of Progenitus, maybe a small temptation to pop the first one to save a little bit of damage, but if there were a Kolaghan's Command in response, that could look a little messy. There we see Kolaghan's Command, so flexible, so versatile, and especially when you cascade into it with a Bloodbraid Elf, it just represents an absurd amount of card advantage.
I think the card is very well designed. I think 3 mana is perfect. All 3 modes are fine, but not too powerful, but still sees a lot of play in Modern. Even in Legacy, it sees some play. I think it's a very well designed card. Actually, 4 modes, I'm sorry.
So here we have Liliana of the Veil forcing a discard. That gets followed up with Relic of Progenitus activation. Not too many cards in the graveyards just yet. Yol discarding an additional copy of Liliana of the Veil. Obviously can't have 2 copies of that in play at the same time. Oh. Abrupt Decay on the next Relic of Progenitus. So all those relics now dealt with. And with Liliana ticking up here, it's not going to be too terribly long before potentially we even see an ultimate on her, and that can get kind of messy when your opponent's, again, trying to assemble a full Tron. Ancient Stirrings, once more, desperately digging to try and find that third Tron piece.
Nope. Not the best Ancient Stirrings so far. We've seen better in this tournament.
Oblivion Stone does come down, though, and that will at least offer Fabrizio Campanino a way of dealing with that Liliana, a way of buying a little bit of additional time here.
Joel might be regretting using that Abrupt Decay right now, because he would much rather get rid of the Oblivion Stone. But what about that? Look at that. Get rid of everything. Smash in with Tarmogoyf. Liliana's still on 5. This was a very good sequence by Joel Larsen. He's been playing this Jund deck to perfection.
Yeah, Joel Larsen here, just double-checking exactly how many card types are in this graveyard. Tarmogoyf attacking for a pretty hefty amount of damage here. Instant, sorcery, land, and creature, thanks to Thragtusk being the graveyard, and artifact. So everything but the Planeswalker. Just a draw and a pass from Fabrizio Campanino, whose hand is getting a little sparse. And this is the rub, really, when it comes to Liliana of the Veil against Tron. If you have lots of lands in play, if you do not have lots of lands in play, you can sometimes get stuck with expensive cards in hand that you just have to discard to Liliana. Does not take too many draws with nothing in there for the handshake. Joel Larsen wins his match. He gets to now look on either side of him. He's got Elias Watsfeld playing Standard, a game up. He's got Per Nystrom playing Legacy, a game down. He just needs to hope that one of his teammates can eke out a win here in order for him to be playing in the elimination stages after the cut here in Madrid.
This was a convincing win. I mean, this is supposed to be a bad matchup for Jund, but that's not how it felt. These two games were very lopsided.
Well, looking at the way that the games are going after sideboarding for Elias Watsfeld, he is looking in a slightly rough spot here. He's on 8 life. Earthshaker Kenra coming down here, meaning that attack's dropping him to 5 here. Not too much work left for Matteo Mori to do in order to win this game 2 after sideboarding. Game 1 going to Elias Watsfeld. We saw the very, very end of that one.
5 life is not a lot, but it's something. It's, especially since he's playing 4 Moment of Craving, 4 Vraska's Contempt. That's a lot of life gain in his deck. And now Scarab God as a nice blocker.
I mean, if something the likes of an Uncropped Crasher comes down now, though, it could be lights out for Elias Watsfeld in this game too.
Elias at 4, potentially with the Firebrand, so even a Lightning Strike doesn't seal the deal. And if he can untap with the Scarab God, it might actually be looking pretty good for him.
Yeah, he gets a chance to start grabbing creatures from the graveyard, filling up his board a little bit with blockers.
For some reason, I always think that the land gives -1/-1 and makes sure that the creature can't block, but it's only -1/-1, right?
I believe so, yes.
Because
So
that would make the land so much better. If it's at -1/-1 and the creature can block, then Matteo would have been able to attack for 3 there, and instead he just has to say go.
as things stand, Matteo Mori gradually building up a board, but now he's looking at a blue-black control deck that gets to hold open mana, and even if there are no spells to be cast, there's still that Scarab God that can produce additional blockers at a moment's
But
notice.
Look at that draw from Matteo. He drew Scavenger Grounds. So now the first activation of the Scarab God won't do anything. What if he attacks with everything? The Scarab God blocks the 2/1. Elias takes 4, goes down to 1, still facing that Firebrand. That's Scavenger Grounds. And it's crucial that it's a land, because there was no way Elias could actually respond to that.
Yeah, I mean, the best that Elias can hope for against Scavenger Grounds is if he has a disallow for the sacrifice ability, he may be able to get something going here.
And Elias will have no other choice but to block either the Earthshaker Kenra or the Monkey. If he blocks one of the one power creatures, he's actually dead. Putting the Earthshaker Kenra in the graveyard is also something he doesn't want to be doing. Although he can reanimate it. Oh, Vraska's Contempt.
A
That
big
actually
Vraska's Contempt here.
That changes the mat completely.
Removing a creature, gaining 2 life. Yes, it means that the Scarab God's not doing quite as much this turn, but it's still being a big old body that gets to stand in the way of one of the 2 creatures that Matteo Mori has to use here, and it may well be that Matteo Mori simply passes without doing any attacks here whatsoever.
Matteo should use use the scavenger grounds this turn, just to make sure that there's no more creatures coming into play with the Scarab God. Yeah, well played by Matteo.
And he sacrifices the other deserts, the scavenger grounds still around. Makes the most of the fact that Elias Watsfeld tapped down, so he only had 3 mana remaining, so there couldn't be an activation in response. This is a blue control deck that's having to live off the top of his deck, but it's doing so very well. Moment of Craving, able to kill off Earthshaker Kenra, gain some more life for Elias Watsfeld, and doing so leaving enough mana remaining that Elias Watsfeld is going to be the first person with the opportunity to get that Earthshaker Kenra out of the graveyard.
Yeah, now up to 7 life. Matteo could sacrifice his own Firebrand to kill the Kenra, so that Elias wouldn't gain 2, but that's not a good option. And now Reanimate and attack for 9. That was a crucial draw for Elias.
Big turnaround for Elias Watsfeld there.
He can even attack with the Scarab God, although he's got to be careful of a top deck.
I mean, even a top deck Hazaret doesn't do 7 damage right here.
No, but it would deal 6, and then he's dead next turn, and he doesn't have lethal. So I don't think he can attack with the Scarab God. The question is, however, how much do you want to play around 1 card? It's only 4 cards in Matteo's deck. The other cards are pretty useless. Yeah, I think I like the attack as well.
Gets the damage in, at least gives himself the potential option of closing this game out a little bit quicker. And Matteo Mori has not slammed whatever card it was that he drew onto the table. He's carefully considering how he wants to play this out. Potentially with Fabrizio Campanino providing a little bit of additional information, a couple of extra opinions on how he should play this card that's just come from the top of his deck.
If it's a Hazaret, he should attack with just the Hazaret. Keep back the Firebrand, block the Scarab God, sacrifice the Firebrand, put his opponent at 1, and then still have the Hazaret being able to discard a card. But instead it's a Phoenix, which isn't too bad either. The question is, does he attack with the Firebrand, put Elias at 6? I don't think he can attack with the Firebrand. The 1 damage will not matter. He will need 2 attacks from the Phoenix.
Yeah, this is a very, very close situation.
Let's see. Elias attacks with both creatures. Matteo blocks the Scarab God, sacrifices, puts Elias at 6. Matteo would go down to 7. Matteo would be dead the turn after unless he draws a permanent, but now he's just attacking. Puts Elias at 6, potentially 5.
Each of these players living off the top of their deck here.
This is a very close game. I don't like the attack. I don't like the attack because now he's actually got to finish Elias next turn because Matteo's going down to 10. Elias can attack for 9.
So this is the scry from Elias, from the Scarab God that he's just considering here.
Oh, but the Phoenix can also block. The Phoenix can block? Yeah. Oh no, then he can exile it. Never mind. The Phoenix can block. So now he's at 1, and he's facing 1 zombie plus a Scarab God. I don't think the attack with the Firebrand was correct.
This is very close indeed, and potentially represents the tournament life, not just of Matteo Mori, but his entire team here. Already a match down with Joel Jarlsson having won his modern match. Already a game down against Elias Watsfeld. Matteo Mori has to find a way of winning this game and the next one if his team is going to have any shot at playing in these elimination stages. And he desperately needs to find 1 more point of damage. He can attack for 5 very easily. That 6th point, though.
Yeah, now he's at 1. He cannot. No, I think if he wouldn't have attacked, he might have had another draw step. But now I think he's dead unless he drew another Fanatical Firebrand.
And there's the handshake. Elias Watsfeld wins. Joel Jarlsson has already won. That means that Per Nystrom does not even need to play through his deciding game because, you know what? These guys already going to be in their elimination stages. And we've heard that Per Nystrom and Tommaso Badiali, it turns out that the Red Prison Mirror is not one that they really want to play just for funsies at the end of the Swiss rounds of this tournament. So congratulations to the team of Larsen, Nystrom and Watsfeld. We will be seeing some more of them as they are now at 34 points, so they have locked up their position in the elimination stages. We're going to get a chance to see still more magic in this, the final round of Red Zone, before we cut to our top 4, because we have also got some Time Walk magic going on. Now, that Time Walk match is between Grimmer, Severin and Huschenbeth against Polzel, Vignain and Arnuv. Each of these teams on 30 points, so their tiebreakers, very, very good. We believe that whichever team in that matchup wins will be able to make it through to the elimination stages. We're going to get a chance to see that match right after these messages. Hello and welcome back to this, the final round of the Red Zone. This is the final cut before we get to our elimination stages. semi-finals and finals. We have already seen one match determining who we're going to see in our final four, but you know what? We're going to get a chance to join another match in progress now in the feature match area floor. A little bit of a time delay on it, but we're going to get a chance to see it very shortly. That is going to be the match between Huschenbeth, Severin and Grimmer and Polzel, Vignain and Arnuv. We've already seen a little bit of some of these decks in the feature match area. We're going to get a chance to find out how they work out properly in this, if anything, the most important round for these guys as we get to the last round of the Swiss. Let's head down to see a little bit more magic. We've got Huschenbeth and against Polzel, that is Constrictor against Blue-Black Control, Monogreen Tron against Red-Green Eldrazi, Jeskai Stoneblade against Turbo Depths from Vladimir Arnuv. Let's head down. I think we're going to start off with a little bit of standard here. Let's see what we've got going on in our feature match area. Arne Huschenbeth and Tristan Polzel, as I say, starting in progress. Huschenbeth winning game 1 against Tristan Polzel, Torolf Severin and Remy Vienne still going in the middle there. And Polzel on the play here. Ooh, just jumping about a little bit, but we will make sure that we try and bring you some consistent magic going on here. Huschenbeth, an interesting death that he's working with. Can you do you have the lists there on this one, Moraine?
Nope. They actually got a deck check, so we did not receive the deck list, unfortunately.
Not to worry. It looks like we've got a little bit of energy early on from Tristan Polzel here. He is working with Winding Constrictors, where on the other side of things, a more traditional blue-black affair going on from Arne Huschenbeth. This is game 2 and an Essence Scatter coming along to stop that Glint-Sleeve Siphoner, meaning just a small attack for 2 here from Tristan Polzel in the early turns of this second game. Looking to bounce things back after having lost the first one to this blue-black control deck from Huschenbeth. It's a sad day when Servant of the Conduit just getting through for damage each turn rather than accelerating too much out. So Tristan Polzel's hand possibly a little bit of a funny one that's going on here. And this kind of playing into the hands of Huschenbeth, he's got a bit of time in order to draw into appropriate counter magic, deploy lands, generally get to the mid and late game, which one must imagine does favour the blue-black deck. I guess the one thing to be said about the blue-black list right now is that somehow or other it's managed to end up with all of its blue lands and only the one swamp to work with. So the likes of Vraska's Contempt is going to be a little bit trickier to cast for Huschenbeth right now as he looks on at an opponent who's not doing too terribly much right now, getting an Ether Hub in play, getting up to 3 energy, though it wouldn't surprise me if some of that gets spent relatively quickly here. Polzel on 20. Huschenbeth, it looks like our life total's not necessarily fully updated just yet. And the artifact that we have in play here, Silent Gravestone, it means that cards in graveyard can't be the target to spells or abilities, and it's another way of exiling cards from the graveyard and draw a card. It's kind of the standard equivalent of Relic of Progenitus.
The poor man's Relic of Progenitus.
But you know what? Sometimes there are Scarab Gods in them Thar Hills, and you need a Silent Gravestone just to make sure that you don't have to worry about them so much.
It also works well against Torrential Gearhulk, because cards in the graveyard can be the target of spells or abilities, so you can actually can't target anything. So I'm guessing that's where this Cyborg card is coming from. It's still a very poor 4 mana to sacrifice is a lot. That's something not even comparable to 1 mana from Relic of Progenitus.
Well, it looks like we finally have a 5 mana spell here from Tristan Polzel, and I believe that it is a Vergis Gearhulk. I'm not entirely sure it's going to resolve, though. Plenty of answers in hand for Arne Huschenbeth right now. It's just a matter of which one he wants to deploy.
Disallow. The thing is, he kind of wants to play a Glimmer of Genius, but he cannot let that Gearhulk resolve. It will make both the Servant of the Conduit and the Gearhulk too big, so even one removal spell won't be able to answer it. Question is he going to cycle the Illumination? I guess he is, because I don't think he will get a lot of... no, he's not. He's still at 16. Maybe he recognizes that he will need a little bit more card advantage. Cycling would not net him a card. Well, only 1, not 2. And now he just passes the turn with 5 mana up. He can still Vraska's Contempt and then still decide to cycle if he wants to.
Now, Blossoming Defense is something that Tristan Protzel has available to him if he sees a Vraska's Contempt on one of his bigger threats. At the moment, the big concern is actually just resolving said threats, because 7 of the Conduit on its own has a relatively long road if it wants to deal the remaining 16 points of damage here.
This is a good card to play against blue-black control. Maybe some card advantage. Winding Constrictor. He's going to put that in the graveyard. Maybe hoping to hit a land. A Glintsleeve Siphoner. He likes that a little bit more. And I do agree, because he has 2 Blossoming Defense to actually protect the Glintsleeve Siphoner.
Yeah, Jadelight Ranger, just a very happy 4-3 for 3 here.
Now also a Fatal Push, which can get rid of the Servant of the Conduit. Now that Tristan is tapped out, no way to protect it with Blossoming Defense, but no, instead he's just going to draw a card.
Yeah, Anahushinbeth, presumably relatively thankful that he's not faced too terrifying a set of creatures in these early turns. And now would be a good time for him to use his removal. We don't know whether or not he knows about Blossoming Defense from game 1, but if he waits until his opponent's turn to start using removal, he may find that that plan is stymied by the instant speed pump spell.
Yeah, Blossoming Defense, very common in these Sultai energy lists, so if Arn has played a little bit of Standard, he should know about a card like that. Now he's choosing to go with Vizier of the Many Faces. Ooh, putting a second copy in the graveyard. That's some nice little value. Copying the Jadelight Ranger in the meantime. That was a good turn for Arn Hushinbeth.
And there is also a Search for Azcanta available to Arn Hushinbeth. He's not that far off transforming the enchantment and getting himself Azcanta the Sunken Ruin going here. Poltzel, his attack's not looking quite as exciting now that in the face of that Vizier of the Many Faces, if you see what I mean. And a little update, we are now at our German team on the left-hand side of your screen. They've won 2 game 1s. Meanwhile, Vladimir Arnov winning his game 1 in Legacy.
Yeah, Jadelight Ranger getting in, but I guess we're going to see a block here. Arn obviously wants that Vizier in his graveyard to embalm. Already has 1, could even get back a second one. It gets so dangerous to actually play a Verdur's Gearhulk, for example, because Arn can reanimate the Vizier and make his own Gearhulk.
Glintsleeve Siphoner coming along. Plenty of energy to work with for Tristan Protzel here.
And still 2 mana up. He could actually save his Jadelight Ranger with a Blossoming Defense, but it seems like Arn is just not blocking. Maybe he wants to have the 4-3 blocker against, for example, Servant of the Conduit. Knows that he's got targeted removal anyway, but that does run into Blossoming Defense, so he might find himself quite low if he doesn't start blocking.
Fatal Push on the Siphoner. This may well prompt a response from Poltzel here. Plays the Blossoming Defense. Now, right now, Hushinbeth in a weird spot where he still just doesn't have access to very much black mana. At some point, he may find himself using Field of Ruin, not just to disrupt what Poltzel has going on, but also just in order to try and make sure that he has access to an additional swamp.
And the reason why Arn did this in his upkeep is because he wanted the extra card in the graveyard for Search for Azcanta. Now at 6, this is going to be the 7th, and now he is going to flip his Search for Azcanta. He did have to put a Fatal Push in the graveyard in order to do so. A card I'm sure he would have liked, but it seems like he's valuing the flip on Search for Azcanta more than the second Fatal Push.
Hushinbeth on 12 life, trying to get something going here. At the moment, just the Vizier of the Many Faces copying Jadelight Ranger in play.
Yeah, let's of course not forget about the Gravestone. It can get rid of the Vizier of the Many Faces. I think Arn, if he's aware of that, he might as well reanimate his Vizier. No, instead he says go.
Poltzel making the most of his Glintsleeve Siphoner while it hangs around, getting to draw an additional card with it.
Glintsleeve Siphoner has been so good. So many decks are playing it. It's an it's a cheaper Dark Confident. I have the impression. It's got menace, can attack. I've been very impressed with this card at this tournament.
Yeah, I mean the menace on it is the thing that means that it can reliably attack. It can reliably generate more energy, which means it can of course draw more cards, and that means that it's on a board like this, it's always doing something. Whether it's drawing you cards, whether it's getting damage through, whether it's generating energy for you, it's always working.
And because there's so many decks that also run 4 Ether Hub, you often get to draw a card on the first upkeep, which is better, usually better than Dark Confident. You lose only 1 life. In Standard, you risk flipping a card like 5 or 6 mana. I mean, if you flip a Scarab God, it seems like Tristan played the wrong land, wanting to play the forest instead.
Looks like Hushinbeth allowing that one. Attacks coming in here from Tristan Potzel.
Yeah, now if Arn does block with the Vizier on the Jade Light Ranger, I guess we're going to see a Gravestone activation, drawing a card and getting rid of both the Vizier of Many Faces.
So first up, Azcanta the Sunken Ruin getting activated. Hushinbeth looking for a bit of action here. Finds himself kind of a nice one there. Unfortunately for him, no black mana to work with right now.
Yeah, Flipped Surf for Azcanta is problematic for this Sultai Energy deck. Since it's 3 colors, they don't run Field of Ruin, and that card advantage could end up being crucial. Not going to be easy for Tristan. He kind of needs to grow his creatures big enough so that they survive against Moment of Craving, but he's just, he's afraid. He doesn't want to tap 5 mana. This would mean Arn could reanimate his Vizier of the Many Faces, for example, or just Vraska's Contempt, kill the Gearhulk.
So here comes a Moment of Craving on that Siphoner again.
I don't really know what Tristan's plan is at this point. I mean, you cannot let your opponent untap with Temple. This is you need to pressure your opponent if he's looking at the top 4 every turn and grabbing himself an instant or sorcery. By keeping back all of these cards, he's just not putting up any pressure, and I think he's not favored to win the late game.
Yeah, blue-black. The late game is where it lives, and the early game is where it dies, I guess. Arne Hushinbeth, he does not mind passing back and letting Tristan Potzel do things.
I mean, I understand that he's keeping up the Gravestone because he wants to get rid of the Vizier of Many Faces, but then he should just use it right on the spot, use it end of turn, and then try to resolve a big Gearhulk. I don't think the plan can be to let your opponent have so many free impulses.
Well, Tristan Potzel making the signal. He's going to be tapping a lot of lands right here.
Having a little think. Is it going to be Walking Ballista? Or
can't decide if he's in forward or reverse sometimes in this game. It seems like each play that he makes, he gets 90% of the way there, then decides to back up and try again.
Yeah, now with both the Blossoming Defense gone, there is not even a way for him to protect the Gearhulk. Also, first attacking before playing the Gearhulk is a little bit weird. You might as well play it first and then maybe even attack with some more creatures. But now instead he's going for a Walking Ballista, a 2/2. Yeah, and I'm not really sure what his plan is here. He's giving his opponent so much time. Now Arn finds another Moment of Craving. Will be able to get rid of the Glintsleeve Siphoner. Still holding Vraska's Contempt. I'm not really sure what Tristan's plan is.
Evolving Wilds here, fetching up another land for Arne Hushinbeth. Finally gets a little bit more black mana going on. Now he can potentially be casting multiple black spells a turn.
Five, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana. Yeah.
Finally we might see this Glintsleeve Siphoner actually get killed. It's already survived 2 shots from Arne Hushinbeth.
Yeah, he's going to kill his own Glintsleeve Siphoner. Pinging his opponent for 1 basically, because the exile would have gained him 2 life. Now Moment of Craving. Shoot him. He's at 7. Arn is at 7. Facing a single Servant of the Conduit. Gearhulk could pump it up to 6/6. So he would go down to 1 if Arn doesn't have another removal spell.
So, depending on exactly what the card is in Tristan Polzel's hand, if he's already got a Gearhulk and maybe draws into a Blossoming Defense, in principle he could represent lethal here. It seems a bit of a stretch, and of course there are still cards in Arne Huschenbeth's hand here.
And there's also still the Oasis, the desert land.
Kashyap Oasis.
Yeah, well, seems like Arn figures that out.
Yeah, doesn't want that one to be a feature.
Seems like Tristan is getting rewarded for waiting so long with the Gearhulk. Arn kinda has to hit a Fatal Push or a Moment of Craving with this activation of the Temple. Drowser Swamp. So Servant of the Conduit could grow to a 6/6. Let's see if he goes full all-in on the 6/6. Might actually want 5/5. He cannot kill Arn, that's for sure. So the highest damage he can do is 6. I don't think it matters all that much whether you put your opponent on 2 or 3. So I think I would make 2 5/5s.
Well,
nope.
That's going to be a little bit trickier all of a sudden.
He's actually not playing anything. If he's afraid of Torrential Gearhulk.
At some point, this inactivity is going to be a problem for Tristan Polzel. Maybe he's just hoping that his 2 teammates are going to win before he needs to make a decision. So here comes Vizier of the Many Faces, just copying a Servant of the Conduit. Generate a little bit of energy, why not? Once it becomes clear that Polzel is not going to be activating his Silent Graveyard anytime soon, he figures he might as well. And here comes a Winding Constrictor from Tristan Polzel. So this will mean that he's generating more counters whenever he makes counters.
To me, it also seems that Tristan has forgotten about his own gravestone, because he would have sacrificed it in response to the Vizier of the Many Faces, right? You can use it at instant speed, so if your opponent embalms, you just use it in response to get rid of the Vizier, so it doesn't come into play.
And as things stand, Fatal Push taking down that Winding Constrictor. And Arne Huschenbeth, he's on 7 life, but he's got so many cards to work with now that one has to think that he's got some reasonable options here.
Okay, never mind. With Embalm, you actually have to remove the creature, so it does not work the way I thought it would. But I'm still surprised the gravestone is still in play after so many turns. Is he really waiting to be able to remove
I mean,
a gear?
Now that there's a Scarab God in play, it does mean that he has, in some respects, been rewarded for waiting around, because the Scarab God is one of the cards that gets substantially worse with a Silent Gravestone knocking around. It can't get any creatures back from the graveyard, and if it does happen to die, then Tristan Polzel has a way of making sure that it actually stays away.
Yeah, but for that, the Scarab God would still have to die first.
So,
yeah, I think this game is over now.
Not resolving, and a disallow being revealed off Azcanta the Sunken Ruin. The life totals are 7 to 19, but I would not worry about them staying that way for too long. Attacks here on Tristan Polzel. His life total starting to diminish, and we can see here Huschenbeth, the pace of his play pretty fast at this point, as he realizes that all he needs to do is work his way through 3 more turns of attacking, and he's got enough counter magic that he may well be able to stop pretty much everything that Polzel has going on.
Yeah, at least the gravestone stops any activations from the Scarab God. So that's something. But it's still a 5/5 beast. Well, God.
We're in this weird spot here where Arne Huschenbeth may very well be able to stop literally everything that goes on for the rest of the game from Tristan Polzel. He's been drawing so many additional cards with the Azcanta the Sunken Ruin. Just finds another disallow, uses it on Glintsleeve Siphoner. Not too many turns attacking in order to close this game out, and we're going to see each and every one of them as Arne Huschenbeth potentially gets the first match win in this final round of the Swiss. Obviously, 2 matches need to be won by one team in order to actually win the series and get through to our elimination stages. But these players willing to go through the motions on doing that. Silent Graveyard number 2, yeah, that one will allow.
And now we're finally going to see an activation. Getting rid of all the cards in the graveyard does draw a card, but he's at 7 life. He will need a very good top of the deck. I think he did find a Carnage Tyrant, so that one can at least block the Scarab God, but one more creature from Arn would spell trouble.
Yeah, Carnage Tyrant, the perfect answer to the pseudo lock that Arne Huschenbeth has in place here. He's got plenty of counter magic. Carnage Tyrant, of course, cannot be countered.
Might be actually the only card that can save him. Double Disallow. Still might not be enough, though.
Okay, here's the big dino.
He was ready to play that Disallow. You could see it. He pulled it up to the front, and then, oh no, that doesn't work.
What does work against the Carnage Tyrant for these blue-black decks?
Comet's Memory, put it on top. Torrential Gearhulk is, of course, not something you can take.
Glimmer of Genius representing a glimmer of hope here. All right. Let's draw a couple more cards.
Let's not forget, Arn is at 7.
The magic number, if you will.
Might have to start blocking with the Scarab God.
Scarab God against a Carnage Tyrant, not a great blocker even.
Nope.
Those numbers do not stack up well. Has Tristan Polzel found a way out of this one?
Well, it's still... Arn can still chump for like forever. He's got the Disallow to counter the Gravestone if Tristan decides to sacrifice it. So it will keep coming back, the Scarab God. He's got so many lands, and he will have so many draws with the Temple. So I don't think there's a way out. I mean, it's double Disallow, Vraska's Contempt, Essence Scatter now.
I mean, there's trample from this dino too, though. There's not too many turns of trampling needed.
Well, it's only 2 damage, so it's still 4 attacks. There's no more Oasis in play. That could certainly help. And he kind of cannot play any more creatures, because if he plays more creatures, his opponent will just Vraska's Contempt.
Uh-oh.
One turn too late. Now that it's in play, this is no more answer.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate, that one. Yeah, a rough turn of events for Arne Huschenbeth. It felt like he had things locked down, but Carnage Tyrant, just the single card strategy of make a hexproof uncounterable monster may yet prove good enough. Where are those Viziers and the minion faces now?
Oh! Is there a creature still in any of the graveyards? I don't think there is.
There's not much in any graveyard right now. Commits the
funny thing is that Tristan cannot play any creature right now, because it would just get countered, and then Arn would get to untap, replay the Scarab God, and activate, getting back a lot of 4/4s. So Tristan has to count on that Gravestone resolving. This is a tough game.
Yeah, it seems optimistic for that to resolve.
He knows about at least 1 Disallow, 1 Essence Scatter.
Now, Vladimir Arnov has won his match against Jasper Grimmer, so the team of Polzel, Vinane, and Arnov just need one more match. Remy Vinane and Toralf Severin, they're at 1-1. This is our time walk match. Right after this, we'll be going into our elimination stages, our top 4. Carnage Tyrant attacks in, tramples over the Scarab God, who will be coming back.
Not many cards left in the deck.
Yeah, Arne Huschenbeth has been doing a fantastic job of drawing additional cards. No problem with that one.
Is he going to start milling? Oh, he's going to mill his opponent to get rid of the Gravestone.
Yeah, Ibnu Rivulet.
Oh, he's milling himself? I think he's milling himself. Oh, wow.
That's pretty bold.
I would have expected to mill his opponent.
Yeah, that's where there's likely to be more creatures that work obviously very nicely with the Scarab God. Setting up a multiple block doesn't feel like it ought to be too difficult for him. Also, it means that he doesn't need to worry about countering that gravestone. He can spend his counter magic on something else.
I'm a bit surprised by that. I thought that was actually one of his plans when he put gravestone on top. I thought he would be milling. The Rivulet is actually a card we haven't seen all that much. I don't think a lot of blue-black control decks play it. Maybe one or two, but it seems like Arn has at least 3. This is the second one he sacrifices. Still no creature. I'm so surprised that... Is he really hoping to hit Gearhulk? I do believe he's still got a lot of them in the deck. We saw him put 2 on the bottom with one of the earlier temple activations.
I mean, let's be clear, there's no danger of decking right now because Memory is in Arne Huschenbeth's graveyard, so he does always have the option of using that. Though I don't imagine that he will particularly want to give his opponent 7 new cards to work with. There are pump spells in Tristan Polzel's deck, so Carnage Tyrant, even just on the face of things, attacking for 2 trample, and it doesn't take too much extra to make that a lethal attack.
And this is funny. Tristan cannot play any of his creatures. He knows they will get countered, and he knows they will be brought back with the Scarab God. The only thing he can play is the Gravestone and hope it resolves.
Might as well have a go. Let's see how this plays out for you. Counter that one. Back comes the Scarab God. And another activation of Azcan to the Sunken Ruin. There's just been so many activations now. I'm sure that if Arne had been paying complete full attention, he would basically know exactly what's left in his deck now.
Yeah, he can almost know the order of the cards in his deck, and he's still got that one Rivulet, which would be able to target himself milling and hopefully hitting finally a Torrential Gearhulk, which has been his plan for 2 turns now.
And the plan of hitting a Gearhulk is a good one, because ultimately if he can set up a double block with Gearhulk and Scarab God, then he is right back in this game.
The only thing he's got to be careful of is not milling himself. He's got 5 cards left, if I see it correctly. Does he have enough mana to mill himself and use the Scarab God? He does, so he could do that. But instead he's going to chump once again.
Going to 1 life here.
This has been a very weird game.
Incredibly strange game that's going on here between Arne Huschenbeth and Tristan Polzel. Jasper Gruber and Vladimir Arnev, they have finished their match. That one going to Arnev. And Arne Huschenbeth using every piece of the buffalo here. He's going to look at 4 and see how many Torrential Gearhulks there? 3?
Oh, wow.
Put them all on the bottom. Great. That's where you want them.
So now he's going to sacrifice that Rivulet. 2 cards left in his deck. He's going to draw 1. He does still have the commit memory.
So this is a big moment here for Arne Huschenbeth. He's on 1 life.
He's
up
finally
against a Carnage Tyrant.
He's finally found a creature in his graveyard. The question is, did he forget his Scarab God? Did he untap first?
I mean, untap does happen before. Oh, sorry. Yes, it's end of turn is the Scarab God trigger,
Yeah.
isn't it?
No, it seems
I
like
think we're all right.
this has been quite the game. Does he have 8 mana left if he uses 5 of them to play the God? I think he's got only 7 mana. So he can use 1 time the Scarab God and then disallow on 1 more creature. This game's very close.
And of course, for Huschenbeth, he knows that he just needs to win this game and his team is right back in it. Polzel, he's got to win 2 on the bounce if he's going to win his match. Meanwhile, Toralf Severin and Remy Vienne, they're just still going. If it works out that Toralf Severin loses to Remy Vienne, this entire game kind of is moot. So here we have it. Here we have the Torrential Gearhulks coming along to join the party, and this is the point where Carnage Tyrant is in slightly rough shape.
Yeah, now we can finally see a double block, something Arn has been aiming for quite some time. He's gonna double block, gonna lose one of these. One card left in his graveyard, his opponent at 4. So if one of these two creatures get to attack next turn, his opponent is actually dead. Let's see. Tap 4. Play a Bristling Hydra.
Well,
the Torrential Gearhulk targeted a Essence Scatter, so we can counter the first creature for free.
Well, for 2.
No, because with the Torrential Gearhulk...
Oh, I see, yeah.
Didn't he? I think he targeted Essence Scatter with the first...
And here's
Oh,
a Walking
wow.
Ballista for 1.
Didn't he?
That'll do it.
Wow! That was very weird.
Oh, wow. As things turn out, Toralf Severin has won his game against Vienne, but we've just heard that that was essentially, there wasn't enough time for them to start their game 3. That game took so long with the dinosaur just attacking in and not ever quite able to get there, and gradually just eking out the 1-1. You had Toralf Severin winning his match.
Wow.
You had, on the other side of the table, a match being won. That meaning it was 1-1, and there wasn't time to even start Game 3, meaning that was an unintentional draw in that match. That means that all of a sudden things getting very complicated indeed in terms of who makes the top 4. Do not go anywhere, because we will have our top 4 announcement for you soon enough, and indeed our elimination stages here at Grand Prix Madrid right after these messages.